Hey, 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 welcome in, free thinking peeps. It's so good to have you join us today on this special live stream. I'm excited about it. My name is Josh Klein. If you don't know who I am, I don't know where you've been. Well, if you don't know who I am, you might be here for my guest, but I'll be your host today on FreeThinking Ministries YouTube. Before we get into it, if you're new here, please like this video. Even though we haven't even started it yet, just hit that like button. You know you want to. And please subscribe if you haven't subscribed. Like 65% of the people that watch our videos or more aren't subscribed. So hit that subscribe button, that notification, and share it. We'd love for people to see behind the scenes of what was going on in that Jubilee video that we're going to be talking about today. So please subscribe if you like what you hear. Well, even if you don't, subscribe to the channel. I don't mind hate subs. Let's just get the subs up there. So recently I broke down a Jubilee video about Charlie Kirk. You can check the links in the description where he debated liberal college students on this channel called Jubilee Media. And the opposite of that video of one liberal team with 20 conservatives released recently. And I get to welcome in one of the conservative participants on the show, Micah Kunkle. Let's bring him onto the stage now. Micah, how you doing today?
I'm doing good, Josh. How are you, man?
I'm doing great. I'm doing great because you're here. That's why I'm doing great. So Micah and I have known each other for a little while now, probably a little less than a year, maybe.
Yeah, we met at ETS.
Yes, we did last November. But it feels like a lifetime, Micah. It's been good, and he gets to go on a Maven trip. If you don't know Maven, you need to check that out. It's a really cool ministry. But I won't share all the things about yourself. Welcome to the program. Thanks for joining me, Micah. Why don't you introduce yourself? Let people know who you are, what you do, that sort of thing.
Yeah. So I'm a freelance videographer and photographer. So I have my own side business there. But then additionally, I work for my dad's ministry, Maven, which I wore the shirt in the video. Had to give a shout out to him. So I do that part-time as well. And so I handle all the media. I'm the media director there. So handle a lot of social media stuff there. I film the podcast, do a lot of the marketing. And then additionally, I also go on the immersive experiences where we go to different locations around the country and we take groups of students there. And, you know, I'm sure if you're familiar with Tim, you're familiar with sort of what Maven does there. So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Maybe someday I will go on one of those. I've been talking to Tim about doing it. So.
Yeah, you absolutely need to come, man. It's a really, really fun experience.
Yeah, I've heard that. I need to get it done. You know, got to get the wife on board. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. Honey, if you're watching this, she'd be on board.
Yeah.
So, you know, I have done a full reaction to the Charlie Kirk episodes. You got to meet Charlie Kirk.
I did.
While you were there. Did they film both of those on the same day then? Is that?
Yeah, they filmed both of them on the same day. And they filmed my video first, and then we were just hanging out. And I was actually pulling out of the parking lot when Charlie Kirk was pulling in. So I went with my buddy Jacob. We carpooled, and I was like, "All right, we're parking real quick to go say hi to Charlie Kirk." And so then we got to say hi to him and take a selfie. And he was asking us about the video and like what to expect and any tips and things like that. So
cool.
Yeah,
cool. Yeah, that's really neat. I did obviously a full breakdown of. Specifically the abortion part of Charlie Kirk's video, and then that one did well, so I did a full kind of reaction to the whole thing.
Yeah.
And I'm going to be doing that for this one too, but I wanted to bring you on first so that we could discuss some behind the scenes stuff.
Yeah.
And I have to say, I think Dean acquitted himself pretty dang well. In this setting, I think he did well. I disagree with him on almost everything, but I got to say, I think he won a few of those debates without question. What was your feeling on that?
Yeah, well, Dean was a good debater. And Jubilee, you know, they interviewed me afterwards, and that's where those clips come from at the end of the video. But yeah, I had said in that interview, like, yeah, Dean's a good debater. He definitely came prepared. And you know, he does this every day. So that's to be expected. And, I definitely think he beat some of the Republicans in the debate. And, even some of the Republicans afterwards have talked about like, man, they wish they were better prepared for it.
Oh yeah.
So, because apparently I was the only one that like looked at the topics and then actually like tried to do some sort of research.
Okay, so they did give the topics ahead of time.
Yeah, it was a few days. It wasn't a ton of time, but it was a few days before.
Yeah, so really, there's no reason to get caught flat-footed then on some of those things. So that's a little disappointing for some of the people that were in there on that. Obviously, I disagree with him. People who've watched I do disagree with him, but I think he did really well. People who watch my other reaction knows that I took exception to Parker, which I guess is his friend's debate tactics, and I personally thought I disagree with him. Obviously, not usually on TikTok, so I don't see all the stuff that he does there. But I thought he handled himself well, and he actually let people talk and was able to have a civil dialogue with them instead of trying to red herring the heck out of the situation a lot of the times. Yeah. But he did come with arguments and statistics and it was hard for people to respond to. Like one off the top of my head is when he claimed that Trump didn't really care for the American people. And really the biggest thing he pointed to was individual tax rate, that Trump's taxes actually Trump actually raised taxes on the middle class, which is actually true. But that's not the only measure of whether or not someone cares for the American people. You can talk, low corporate tax rates actually have wages go up, low interest rates make things more affordable, wage growth. I think under Trump, wages grew 8%. Under Biden, real wages have actually fallen over 3%. Nobody brought those sorts of things up. Well,
and if you notice too, just kind of the difference in how politics has changed, I think like is illustrated in this conversation. Because before it's always been like, oh, your policy doesn't help the American people. But now Dean's statement was, you don't care about the American people. Even if I disagree with you policy wise, you don't actually care. And so, I think that kind of illustrates where we're at as a country, which is not good.
100%. I mean, the discourse has really fallen off in recent years. And it is not good or healthy. No. So, I'll break down more of that when I do my reaction to the whole video. But let's get into this, Micah. You were there. Explain what Jubilee is and how are you able to get involved? I've never seen somebody that I know on one of those, and all of a sudden I'm like, oh, Micah's on here. So how do you even get involved in that?
So I've been like watching Jubilee videos for the past few years. And I wondered the same thing. Like, how do I get on one of these videos? And so in their description of all their videos, they've always had like, hey, do you want to be in a video? Like sign up for our casting emails. And so then I realized they were based in LA. And so I was like, oh yeah, I'll absolutely sign up for that. So I signed up for that. And then I was actually in a Jubilee video before this one, where I asked an Antifa member questions. So that was a really interesting experience. But when you apply for Jubilee, you put in a bunch of your information, like your political affiliation, religious affiliation, different things like that. And I think that's so that casting directors in the future can take their list that they have and look at all the Christians that they have and say, hey, we have this video, or take all the Republicans and say, hey, we have this video for you. And so that's exactly what happened to me. I started receiving text messages after that video about different videos to go on. And when I received the one about the 1 liberal, 20 conservatives, I was like, oh yeah, absolutely. Sign me up for that one. So yeah, that's how I got connected. And then I did a little Zoom interview with them and then got an email saying I was confirmed for the video.
That's awesome. So how is it pitched to you? Because it says, I think the title of the video is 1 liberal against 20 Trump supporters.
Yeah.
Is that what you thought you were signing up for? Was it Trump's like Trump supporters, or did you think it was going to be conservatives?
No, it was pitched to me as like 1 liberal versus 20 conservatives.
Okay.
And so, yeah, I didn't necessarily sign up for something like that. You know, given that like most of the prompts were around Trump, and given that it does better for the YouTube algorithm, I don't blame Jubilee for phrasing it that way. It's probably what's gotten them, whatever, 7 million views on the video or whatnot. But it is a little misleading in that sense.
Well, I will say I noticed I don't think you even attempted to get out of your chair until about an hour in.
Yeah.
Was that primarily because it was mostly like, I've got to defend, like, not that I'm not putting you on the spot of whether or not you want to defend Trump, or were you just not interested in those topics? Because it was mostly front-loaded Trump stuff, and then they had more conservative loaded back, like on the back end.
Yeah. So interestingly enough, they actually chopped up the video a little bit. The prompt that I went up for was actually the second prompt said. I think they did that for like topic consistency's sake, as kind of what you just said. But yeah, I mean, so part of it was like, I did want everyone to have a chance to get up, and give it a shot. And that was generally like the consensus among the whole group. And even if you didn't see it in the video, I'm pretty sure like everyone, maybe except like 1 or 2 people, everyone went up at one point. And so, so anyways, there was that. And then, there was also just like, I didn't want to necessarily be defending Trump on some of his actions and some of his things. And also it's just to like, I'm not like super comfortable, like, debating that on like an in-depth level. I just don't know all the statistics like Dean does. So, it probably would have been something where I would have lost, or I would have had to pivot to just kind of basic debating, because there were some things that Dean said that didn't like logically, I didn't think followed. But he had the statistics, so it made him look good for sure.
Yeah, he definitely won on rhetoric and in a lot of the things. And he threw out statistics, and there was one lady that got up and debated about like the Afghanistan pullout that could have honestly owned him, but because she was so emotional, she ended up losing it. Like, she kept interrupting him, wouldn't let him speak. He was even willing to grant, "Oh, you must know a little bit more about this than I do," and she just kind of tried to steamroll him angrily, and
I know,
it's just not helpful. So speaking of that, what was and then we're going to get into some clips. So people, if you're hanging on, we are going to get into some clips. This isn't just going to be a conversation here the whole time about the experience, but that's part of it. What was your overall impression with Dean? Have you interacted with him before? Did you interact with him after?
I had seen Dean on TikTok before, because I had actually debated Parker on TikTok before. And so Dean and Parker are kind of like, they both kind of come together. So like if you watch Dean videos, Parker videos are going to pop up for you for sure. So I'd seen Dean on TikTok, never really interacted with him. But as soon as we like entered into the room and I saw Dean hanging out, I was like, okay, I know this guy, like he's a TikTok debater. And so, but I mean, first impressions, like, again, he's a really good debater. He has a lot of those facts just kind of in his head, it's really good. It, definitely gives an air of like authority to him, which is really good. And I mean, generally I'd say overall, he's definitely much nicer than Parker.
He came across that way. Now, it could be that you're in the middle of a group and there's hostile people, or you feel like there's hostile people around you that might change your disposition, rather than you get your 20 seconds of fame in front of Charlie Kirk and want to be hostile. I don't know. I only know of those two guys from both of these videos, so that's the entirety of my opinion that I'm getting from them. You have told me I need to get on TikTok. Maybe that's the case, but I haven't.
How you reach the youth.
Yes, the youths. All right, so we're gonna talk about some clips. I'm gonna share my screen here. First one that I'm gonna do is I actually gotta razz you a little bit here because this is just bad effort.
Thank you for the conversation.
Okay, so here you go. Come on, Micah.
Hey, listen.
A
He
little
got up
faster,
before.
man.
He got up. I was following the rules, man. Did you see that? Joshua got up before.
Yes,
I love Joshua. He's great. We've talked afterwards. He's a really cool guy.
Yeah, I just thought it was funny. I think that was the first time I saw you move in the whole thing. And I will say before we get to this next clip, if you watch the Charlie Kirk one, people are like pushing each other over to get in that chair.
It's
for
crazy.
Charlie Kirk. In fact, at one point, somebody falls over, and instead of being like, "Oh, you fell, I'll let you," the other person just sits in the seat. And
and that was Parker. That was Parker who did that. And it's like, it doesn't even surprise me. It's like, why don't you take a second to like have some humanity and like care about the person that just fell in front of you?
Was it a girl that fell? I can't remember.
I think it was a guy.
It might have been a guy. I couldn't remember. I just thought it was funny that the collision, and then like for me, I was like, "Oh, you let the guy who fell in the chair, obviously."
Yeah.
He just like, "Nah, this is musical chairs. This is life or death, man. We're gonna go."
Yeah, because Parker didn't care about having a conversation. He cared about his sound bites.
Yes, he wanted his TikTok sound bites.
Yeah, he did.
And he got them. I mean,
he did.
Fair's fair, right? He got the TikTok sound bites, and it worked out for him. I think he looked a little bit silly, but he might. I'm not his target audience, so kudos to him for. I just if he's wanting to change minds, I would say Parker, change strategies if you want to change minds. But if you just want sound clips, that might be the case. Sometimes I say that to Charlie Kirk too. Like there are times where he also is looking for the sound bite. So now let's get into some actual content here, shall we? So that was me just kind of razzing you here. I think you only went up one time until he chose to debate you.
Yeah.
So if you haven't watched the video, basically the idea is they do a prompt, and then first person to the chair gets to debate until there's 11 flags raised, and then they have to change the debater, right?
Yeah.
And then at the end, the person who's the permanent seat, in this case, Dean, gets to choose one person from around the circle to debate. We'll get to that in a little bit. But I know this is going to be a little bit weird. Have you watched yourself in this yet?
Yeah, I have.
Okay.
Yeah, I did a little watch party with some family and friends, and actually one of the guys in the video showed up, and we watched the whole video together.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah. That's better than doing it yourself, because when you do it yourself, it's like, oh my gosh, what was I doing?
Yeah, you can kind of laugh together and maybe cry together. But
all right. So the prompt here was what? Something about family values.
Conservatives don't actually care about family values.
Okay, so we're gonna play a little bit, and then we're gonna pause it, and we'll have you kind of react and feel how you did here.
Yeah.
All right. So I think your first claim, you were saying that because Donald Trump has this past and this history, that therefore he's anti-family, and then therefore the entire Republican base is anti-family. Is that your argument?
I'd like to make two corrections here.
Sure.
So first of all, that's not like the only reason why I'd say this. It's just like one of
It's one of your arguments.
And then second of all, I wouldn't say that every conservative ever on the face of planet Earth is doesn't actually care about family values for this reason. I'd just say that this is going to be typically true.
Okay. So you think just because Donald Trump is the Republican candidate, that therefore typically conservatives or Republicans are anti-family?
Well, I'd say the consideration of who the Republican Party is championing, Donald Trump, a consideration of like the consequences of pro-life legislation while not having good reason to write that legislation in the first place, along with being anti-IVF and anti-LGBTQ+ are going to be for good reasons.
Right. So, okay. So let's look at Democrats then.
Okay.
Are you going to say that?
I'm going to pause it there. Hey, you did a good job, I think. Oops, that's not what I wanted to do. There we go. You did a good job, I think, of trying to drill down exactly what are we debating here.
Yeah.
Like that was the goal, right? Like what exactly are you saying? Trying to get clarity there. Were you a little bit surprised at the reasons that he gave, or were you like, I can see where he's coming. I can see where he's going.
Oh, I mean, yeah, the reasons he gave were, I mean, shocking. They were, I just thought they like were all complete non sequiturs. Like they didn't actually prove that conservatives didn't care about family values. It was like, it's you know, that idea that, oh, if you don't vote for this policy, then you must be like a terrible person or something.
Yeah.
And so, you know, those were his basic arguments. And so, yeah, I was a little shocked by them.
Yeah. Did he ever define what family values are?
No. And that was a problem within the debate too.
Yeah. So that was part of, like, I was waiting for that to be defined. Okay, when you say family values, what do you mean? Because then I think a lot of times if you elucidate a family value structure that most people would understand, it kind of undermines a lot of the progressive ideology, you know.
Yeah.
So anyway, let's keep going. I just wanted to pause on that.
Democrats are anti-family because they elected someone like Bill Clinton and he cheated on Hillary with Monica Lewinsky. Like, is that, you know, because I think if you are going to say that Trump makes the Republicans anti-family, you're going to have to say the same thing about Democrats and some of the candidates that they've elected.
Not necessarily, right? I think if like Bill Clinton.
Hey, let him talk. Let him talk.
Hey, I like that you said to the people laughing around. You know, literally no one did that in the other video. In the, like, when people were scoffing at Charlie Kirk.
Yeah.
You kind of assumed a position of, no, like, he has a reason. That's what I'm asking.
Yeah.
So good work there. He says not necessarily. And I think he makes a pretty good point here, but then I want to see your response and then let's talk about it.
Yeah.
When Democrats voted for Bill Clinton, did they know, like, because they had a crystal ball, that he was going to end up cheating on his wife with Monica Lewinsky?
No, they didn't.
But when you're going to vote for Trump in November, do you have the prior knowledge that he cheated on 3 of his wife? He sexualized a little girl on an interview
but
with
also
CBS in
Democrats
1992,
voted
etc.
not to impeach him.
Okay.
Right? So aren't all the Democrats in the House that voted to not impeach him now anti-family?
Well, first of all, I gave you 4 considerations why I'd say that the conservative voter base is going to be anti-family. That's going to be one. But I would say that, yes.
Well, right. We have to look at one argument at a time.
Okay. I think you got him there. To say, I think you got to look at one argument at a time. He's trying to move the ball, right? He's saying, oh, so did you have any thoughts when you sat down after that? Be like, oh man, actually, this would have better illustrated my point, or how do you feel you handled that?
Yeah, I mean, I think you know, I could have maybe pointed to like Kamala Harris and the, you know, Willie Brown situation, or I could have pointed to the fact that, you know, like Joe Biden, you know, he ignores one of his grandchildren because Hunter Biden, you know, had a mistress and all that stuff. So I could have, you know, pointed that stuff out. That's a little more modern. But yeah, I mean, I think the point was clear, is that, you know, just because you vote for someone doesn't mean that they perfectly reflect your values. And that's why I think he tried jumping ship.
Yeah. I think that's just a crazy contention to make, but people are making it all over the place. It's not just him.
Yeah,
people are saying you've given up your Christian values if you vote for Donald Trump. Like I'd be like, well, did I give up my Orthodox Christian values when I voted for Mitt Romney because he's a Mormon? He has a lot of beliefs that I don't hold to.
Yeah, exactly.
But in that binary, because it is a binary choice, you have to choose which one you think will be better for people. So yeah, let's keep going.
Well, I mean, I wouldn't say that, this alone is necessary in saying that all conservatives are anti-family. I'd say it's one of the considerations. I would say that, like the Democrats in Congress that didn't elect to impeach Bill Clinton probably didn't do the right thing there. But then additionally, I'd say even when we look at legislation from the...
I want to pause that there. So this is an interesting admission from him, right? Like, he's kind of, you know what? He's good at this. He gives a little bit. That's a good debate tactic. One that Parker could learn from, to give a little bit and say, you know what, you make a good point there. because then that bolsters your reasonability. And
Mhm.
when you come down with like a sledgehammer on your point, it's more powerful. But that said, it's interesting because one of the things was, it's not just Bill Clinton was not going to be impeached just because of his indiscretions with Monica Lewinsky. It's because he lied about it.
Mhm.
Like he perjured himself.
Exactly.
And so that would be like, well, it's, see, even as you admit that, Dean, the whole point of the impeachment process was, you know what, your personal sexual history, we're not going to impeach you over that, but we will impeach you for lying about it under oath, which actually would bolster your point. I just wanted to point that out there.
Yeah. No,
anything you want to
point.
say about this before we move forward?
No, I mean, I think later on I get into like kind of the voting philosophy, right? And how, that just because, you think, or just because the man has done, some poor things in his personal life doesn't mean, we don't think you should vote for him.
Yeah. Did you ever consider sitting down and saying, I actually abhor all of the evil things that Trump has done to his family, but I think his policies will help my family? Like,
yeah. Oh, yeah. That's a good point. I didn't add that last part, but that first part, I do basically say in the video.
Oh yeah. Yes. I remember that. Well, let's keep watching it and then we'll stop if we.
The Democratic platform versus the Republican one. I mean, the Democratic platform, wants to federally protect all women and girls' right to access abortion. Right, that's going to make sure that unwanted kids.
Okay, I want to pause it there. How crazy is that that's a family value point?
I know, it's crazy. That oh man, yeah. When I heard that, and this is where I wish I had more time, but we ran out of time.
Yeah.
In that specific point, because I wanted to really make my point clear about that Trump argument. And then I was hopefully going to move on to the abortion topic, because that obviously was something I wanted to talk to him about. But yeah, I mean, it's crazy. I mean, abortion literally is ending families.
Yeah. I can't believe that was the first thing he said. I mean, it's not even like the third or fourth thing. He's like, well, it's debatable. It's the first thing he said about the Democrat policies and family.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, well, if that's where we are, this is scary. So, all right.
Yeah.
Kids aren't placed into unready households. The Democrat platform wants to raise the child tax credit to $6,000.
Right. So, I mean, you're being pushed on this argument, and then you're just bringing up other arguments. You're not actually addressing my claims. But additionally, I don't think you can say, oh, just because I'm going to vote for this candidate because I like their policies means I'm therefore anti-family. And I think you have a lot of Republicans, myself included, that are very pro-family, and that, want those things and are disgusted by Trump's previous behavior. But that's not our voting philosophy. Our voting philosophy is based off of policies and what we think are going to be best for the country. That doesn't mean we don't have disagreements with Trump and his personal life.
Yeah.
And I think with literally any candidate, you're going to have disagreements on different policies that they like and different personal behaviors and actions in their life.
Yeah.
But that does not mean that therefore I'm anti-family because I'm going to vote for Donald Trump.
Well, here's the way I'd put it. I don't see how you could call yourself pro-family, turn around, platform Donald Trump with his, anti-family past, cheated on 3 of the wives, 1 with a porn star, and vote for his legislation that in turn is anti-family as well.
I just said that's not our voting philosophy.
You said that you voted on the context of policy, but this is also considering the policy that he wants to enact.
Okay, so that was the end of that session. I think you hammered it down really well. You basically said what I said when I said, "Hey, we're disgusted by his antics, by his past behavior, his policies. We think it's better for family." He doesn't really illustrate why he thinks Trump's policies are worse for families, right? I mean, does he only go to taxes? I don't remember. You remember?
Yeah, I mean, he brings up abortion, and I guess that would be a policy. But yeah, I don't know. It's he not really. He didn't really bring up like a
Yeah.
specific Trump policy.
Well, and you know what's funny is that that specific conversation is so broad. He brought up 4 things. You guys had a good conversation. But even if you're talking about abortion, to say, well, you know, you do realize Trump's stance on abortion isn't anywhere near mine. Like,
Yeah.
like he's okay with 90. Apparently, Trump's okay with 94% of abortions. I'm not.
Yeah.
But like he's middle of the road, pro-choice, 1995 Democrat candidate.
Yeah.
So how is that your first? That means you are saying that for family, late-term abortions are the deciding factor.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like that's what he's saying.
Right. Well, yeah, and it goes back to like this change of like we are now like talking about people's intentions rather than whether their policies are working. And we're saying, oh, your policy does this, therefore you must have bad intentions. When like to prove that like Trump one like has malicious intentions, and then 2 is like knowingly promoting policies that he knows is bad, is just a claim that is going to be really hard to support and substantiate.
Yes, that is absolutely accurate.
Yeah.
So, and then at the end, so for people who haven't watched it, at the end, he got to choose one person to debate. You explained a little bit as to why you think he chose you. Did you guys have a conversation afterwards at all about that?
So like after the conversation, I went up to him and I was like, I kind of apologized for the group a little bit. I was like, hey, I'm sorry we were so, you know, rowdy and, you know, we were interrupting you at times. And I said, I apologize if I ever interrupted you. And he was like, oh no, dude, like it's all good. Like I did it too. And then he said like, and there was a reason that I chose you. And he was like, you were the most respectful. And so yeah, we talked about that afterwards. And so, yeah, I mean, I think, and what is taken out of the video too is the fact that the director said like, hey, Dean, choose someone, and not just choose anyone, but like choose someone you think had the best point against you, or who challenged you the most, or who was the best debater. And so then he chose me.
Okay.
Because I did think I
That's
nailed
good.
him on that point.
Yeah, that's good. I love that the director said it that way, because I mean, you could be tempted to choose the weakest person.
Yeah.
There was a poor young man there that got up there. He must have, I don't know, he looked really young, but he wasn't prepared at all. And I felt really bad for him. You could pick on that, like, and then just steamroll someone. But when you word it that way, did you feel like the Jubilee directors they just wanted good dialogue, or did you feel like there was an agenda there? Or?
Well, I mean, I think they, you know, Jubilee, they definitely want like clips there too, which is probably why they invite people like Omar, or, you know, people like Lori to come to kind of get those, to make sure they get those clips. But I mean, overall, I think they do want, you know, respectful dialogue too, because they realize that that's good. They realize that people need a hook, but like they also want a good conversation. So yeah, and I was thinking too, when I was in the chair and he was like looking around, well, one, I was thinking like, please choose me, because I don't want you to choose someone else. But 2, I was thinking like, oh man, he could totally choose like Omar or Lori or something like that, or someone like that, and just like, you know, get steamrolled, but make it like where he's a victim, and make us look really, really bad, for where like 10 minutes of a conversation is just ruined because the Republican wasn't willing to talk. I was thinking like, oh man, he totally could go down that route, and he would pull out as the victor. You know, it would be an easy victory. Well, yeah, it would be, because so the blonde older lady, that's Lori. Is that, is that who that is? She made a lot of good points. She did some good things. Yeah. But she also made it about her. Like when she sat down, she's like, you got to share a lot. It's my turn now. And I'm like,
that's not how it works. Like, this is supposed to be a conversation.
Yeah.
You know,
Well, and if you notice too, like when we were watching it back together, like when I was watching it back with family, I noticed that she was just like casually like just dropping little flexes here and there. Like,
yes.
Donald Trump invites normal people like myself who have been to his house 5 times. I'm like, all right, dude, go ahead, drop that like flex.
It's funny because you think that's helping you, but it's actually hurting you when you do stuff like that.
Yeah.
Like, she was prepared. She knew her stuff, especially on the border. Like, she knew some stuff.
Oh yeah.
But you have to realize, how old's Dean? He's like 21.
He's 19.
He's only 19.
Yeah.
Man, he's got a bright future. He's smart and articulate. I disagree with almost everything he stands for, but you know, real recognizes real. You know,
exactly. Yeah.
But you also have to know you're also debating a 19-year-old. Like, if you're how old she is, but she's older than I am for sure. And so you have to know, okay, I'm sitting down, and if I look like I'm lecturing a 19-year-old who is actually able to list off a lot of statistics and be very articulate, and I'm not treating him as an equal, it's going to look doubly bad for me.
Yeah.
And I think that's what happened a few times.
Yeah.
He does a good job of getting under people's skin in a very subtle way. Better than, like, Parker does it by like jab, 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 and trying to throw you off. He gets under it by just being like, yeah, you don't know what you're talking about. Just like this kind of subtle, very self-assured way. And then it makes somebody get overly amped up. It's, you know, and I love Tim, if you're watching this, I love you, but it's similar to what James White did with Tim in their debate, right? It's like, you kind of were able to scoot under and there's that opening. People don't realize that debates sometimes just as much about that as content. Like, if you can make the other person falter. So, sorry, I talked a lot just then. That was too much. So he chooses you here to be the person to debate, and you chose abortion. Why did you choose abortion?
Because it had come up in the video multiple times. He used it, you know, as a reason for why conservatives didn't care about family values. And then additionally, like, I'm pretty comfortable with debating abortion. You know, I've done research into it, you know, and unless you bring up something that's not often brought up, like IUDs, I'm going to probably have a response to that. And I've talked to people multiple times, with a college group that I've attended before. We've gone to like a mall and we've got into conversations with people about abortion and things like that.
That's awesome. Yeah, the IUD thing, it seems to be the new red herring that people are using for abortion. Yeah. And it's not something that most people anticipated. But there are arguments against it. Generally speaking, what I try to do when that's brought up is say, hey, you know what, we can talk about that. I'm not talking about contraception right now, though. And just try to take it off the table. But I get when you're blind, when you're like, oh, what is that exactly? What's going on? Yeah. So, all right. So he chooses you. Let's the music. It's very intense.
I think there were 2 reasons why Dean chose me. I think I was probably one of the more respectful people that disagreed with him. And then the second reason is I think I actually challenged him.
He had made a claim along the lines of Bill Clinton, you know, cheating on his wife with Monica Lewinsky and not being impeached by the Democrats in Congress, and how that may reflect some anti-family values. I think that it was probably the best rebuttal that I received from anybody today.
First, I want to shake your hand. I hope to have a respectful dialogue with you. My claim is that abortion is immoral or not justified. And so I think it kind of comes down to 4 main reasons. So,
all right, let's pause it there. Why did you want to word it that way?
Like the prompt?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think, I don't know. That's just kind of, I thought was like the simplest prompt to kind of get into the issue.
Yeah. A lot of people would have sat down and said, my claim is abortion is murder.
Oh, yeah.
but then you might waste a lot of time arguing what murder is. So I wondered
Yeah. Oh yeah, I mean, yeah, definitely. I thought that like immoral or not justified is like a more like a simple claim that more like that. Yeah, it has less baggage to it, I guess.
Okay. Yeah, I was just curious. Also, he's not picking his nose here, people. Come on.
No,
he's itching. Come on.
You paused at the worst time.
And if he was, we all do it. It wouldn't be wrong unless he flicked it at Dean. Then it would be. All right. Let's move on.
So, logically, the argument is to kill an innocent human being is morally wrong. I'm sure you agree with that one. The second is that abortion is the killing of an innocent human being. So therefore, abortion is morally wrong. So that's the logical argument. But I think there's 4 points that you're going to bring up that determine whether or not.
I'm going to pause it here. I want people to remember as we're watching this, that argument that Micah makes here, because he makes a very specific syllogism, simple. Because I actually think Dean, in the midst of talking with you, actually concedes the whole argument at some point. So let's keep going. So then you get into 4 anticipated rebuttals.
A fetus is human or not. So first is size. Second is level of development. 3 is environment. And 4th is degree of dependency. So all those things, kind of what I hear pro-choicers say, fall under those categories. And none of those categories determine human value or human worth. You being valuable as a human is based, one, in the fact that you are a human, like that you are part of the human species.
Okay.
But secondly, I would say because you are made in the image of God as well.
Okay.
And so that would be, I think, the basis of why I am pro-life.
Okay. Yeah, let's have a conversation about this, man. So first of all, I'll just tell you why I'm pro-choice. So I'm pro-choice because I only value life forms that would fall into a specific conjunction of traits. I value any life form that has a conjunction between past or present and future subjective experiences. And it's not until about 20 through 24 weeks that is true of a fetus. Therefore, prior to that point, I'm not going to associate value with the life of that fetus. Second of all, you said that a human was valuable, A, because it's human, and B, it's made in the image of God. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about the idea that you value it because it's made in the image of God, and that is what makes you vote for pro-life legislation. I don't think that we should be using faith-based beliefs to vote for legislation.
Why not?
Because when this has been used historically, this has led to very negative outcomes. One individual might say...
That's not true.
One moment. So one person might say that slavery is okay because God said so, and you're saying that abortion is wrong because God said so. How do we distinguish between those two statements?
See, I know.
Do you notice that? And I think you get into it here. That wasn't your argument.
Yeah.
He completely changes the argument, right? You're saying abortion is wrong because God said so. And you're like, no, I said part of the value of the human being in my faith tradition is that it's made in the image of God, right?
Yeah. No, 100%. He completely changes the argument. And yeah, he's just trying to like hook on to this, one phrase that I said, and then make the whole debate about that.
Yep. Yeah. So he said something earlier in his rebuttal where he says he doesn't see life as valuable unless there's subjective past and future experience, right?
He said past or present and future experiences. It's like a word salad.
Yeah. So, and how exactly do we know that happens at 23 weeks?
That would be a good question for Dean. But I would imagine he would say, like, talk about brainwaves or something like that.
Yeah.
But
yeah,
or
I
like
think
maybe being able to feel pain. I don't know. He'd probably point to something like that.
Yeah. So anyway, so immediately he gets into, I can arbitrarily decide when life is valuable. He's not even debating that it's a life, right? He's saying
yes.
He's saying no, life is only valuable if there is past and present, past or present. I'd have to rewind it. To see
past,
future,
or present.
Yeah, but he links future into that as well, which we'll get into part of this debate. So here's your response to some of that, and then we'll
Yeah.
pause it, and I'll let you speak to how you felt you did there, and if there's anything else you'd want to say.
Never said that, actually. I gave a whole logical argument that's separate from scripture. But
Okay, we can talk about
you agreed to my first premise, so I don't even know why you're bringing it up. It just seems kind of like a red herring.
Okay.
So
Maybe I missed
you
it.
agree to my first premise that killing an innocent human person is wrong,
Oh,
right?
I do not. So I don't
Okay.
think in all scenarios that ending the life of an innocent human being is wrong. I wouldn't say that it would
Really?
be wrong for a fetus before 20 through 24 weeks for the reason it falls outside of that conjunction of value I gave you. It doesn't have the ability to deploy first-person subjective experiences. And maybe you'll
So what
agree
does
with
that
me.
mean? Explain that to me.
Yeah, so like a first-person subjective experience is, like a type of qualia that we all experience, and what gives us an inference of the idea that you're sitting in a chair in front of a microphone, and you can engage with me in a subjective way. It's a little bit hard to explain, but we could sum this up as consciousness. And then, second of all, let's see if maybe you agree with your first premise. Would you say it is murder to pull the plug on a brain-dead patient?
Yeah, but I think that's irrelevant to the debate.
You say that that's murder, and it's not irrelevant to the debate. So do you think that that should be made illegal?
Back in 2022.
Oh, look at that!
Gotta
Hey
love
guys,
that.
I don't have.
Well, I'll speak to this real quick. I heard pull the plug, and just in the heat of the debate, I missed the fact that he said brain dead. And so obviously if someone is brain dead, I mean that at that point they're not even, I don't even really consider them living at that point. And so, pulling the plug on a brain dead patient isn't taking a life, because it's already, the life is already gone. I would say the soul has already left the body.
Yeah, so that was going to be my question to you, because when I heard that, I said, "Ooh, I don't know that I would cede that ground." Like I would say, no, it's like there's no potentiality there. Like that person's literally, the phrase "brain dead." That it's this person is dead, and the brain isn't even keeping the heart beating, right? It's a machine. It's keeping the heart beating.
And I mean, what's going through my mind the whole time too is just like, okay, I know he likes bringing up other things, so I'm going to try to just bring him back as much as possible to like what is a fetus, what is the unborn, and like that's what was running through my mind, which is good in one sense, because that's where the actual debate lies, but in another sense, sometimes you answer things funny and you don't actually mean it.
But we've all been there. I mean, we've all been there. We've done that. I don't know anybody that's been in a debate that hasn't walked off the stage at some point like, oh, dang it, I said that, didn't I? That sort of thing. So I mean, maybe William Lane Craig, but he's a different animal. So yeah, I was going to ask you about that, because that was something that caught my eye too. But it's interesting because he did agree with your first premise, right? When you first said it.
Yeah. So okay, I've actually been thinking about making like a little video about it, because I say my first premise, and then I said, I'm sure you would agree with that as well. And then he like initially nods, but then he like kind of like shakes his head a little bit. So I don't know. I just saw the initial nod and took that as him agreeing with it.
Well, let me rewind it here so that we can see, since we've got the power of rewind. So because I thought he initially agreed with it too, and then later when you push him on it, he disagrees. So let's
I hope to have a respectful dialogue with you. My claim is that abortion is immoral or not justified, and so I think it.
Hey, it's a Trump supporter claim, guys. I'm sorry. You know what? We should take a screenshot and send that to the Trump campaign and be like, "You're pro-life now because the Trump supporter." I'm sorry.
Please.
Micah called it. Anyway, okay, let's move on.
It kind of comes down to four main reasons. So, the argument is to kill an innocent human being is morally wrong. I'm sure you agree with that one. The second is that.
Oh, you can see the little change there, right? Let's rewind it a little bit. This is body language reading. So I thought he agreed with you.
Wrong. I'm sure you agree with that one.
But I think that nod was just him indicating he heard you.
Yeah.
And then he's processing you saying,
but notice though, I said, I said, I'm sure you agree with that one. He nods. And then he realized what I was saying.
Is that abortion?
Did you see that?
Yeah,
So
exactly.
you rewind. This is like psychoanalysis here, 101.
Human being is morally wrong.
See,
I'm sure you
so he
agree with that
nods,
one.
and then he goes,
the second
"Oh wait,
is that
no,
abortion
I don't."
is the killing.
I
Yeah,
think that's what he's doing there. So
yeah,
you know
100%.
what? Apologies to Dean. I think the nod was an indication that he heard you, and then the shaking the head was like, actually, no, I don't
Yeah.
agree with that. So it's hard to pick up on those in like that setting, like because you're just running through your syllogism,
Right.
which is maybe why you go, I'm sure you agree with that one. Maybe you invite him to vocally respond, but you're wanting to get through your syllogism, right? You're not wanting to debate the first point before you even get to the the second point.
Well, and he nodded and I saw the nod. I don't think I saw the like head shake. So I assumed he had agreed to the first premise, but I guess that's where he would take a little issue.
Yeah, which is kind of terrifying, frankly.
Yeah.
That's kind of
and he re-emphasizes that later.
Yeah.
As well.
Let's see if I actually fast forwarded to the right point here.
Before 20 through 24 weeks for the reason it falls outside of that conjunction of value I gave you. It doesn't have the ability to deploy first-person subjective experiences. And maybe you'll.
So what does that mean? Explain that to me.
So like a first-person reference, a little bit hard to explain, but we could sum this. So do you think that should be made illegal?
Yeah.
You say that that's murder, and it's not irrelevant to the debate.
Okay.
We cannot make that choice.
Okay.
We gotta
say here. Human life begins at the moment of conception. Yeah. Maybe something else we could say here. Human life.
I'm sorry, I'm trying to find.
I mean, I think that would
take its course for that.
Okay. Maybe. Okay.
We have to let nature take its course for that.
Okay. Maybe something else we could say here. Human life begins at the moment of conception. Yeah.
Yeah, I would agree to that.
Okay, and it's murder to kill it after that. So would you say, this was a question I asked earlier, would you say that women with IUDs can be murderers? Because in some contexts, an IUD will allow for conception to occur, but then it will...
IUD, explain that.
So an IUD is a form of birth control. It's inserted into a female's cervix, I believe. Maybe that'll get fact-checked.
It's awkward for a 19-year-old to try to you know, I don't know. Had you heard? Did you know what an IUD was ahead of time? You did a good job of asking for clarification.
No, I mean, I had heard of an IUD maybe one time before this. But that was a long time ago, and then I had completely forgotten about it at that point. About what it actually was. So that's why I asked for clarification.
Yeah, and that's good. That's like what we call epistemic humility, to be like, I don't need to pretend like I know what this is, because if you're going to debate someone, you actually need to know the terms that they're using. So exactly. So that's good. So we'll kind of play this, and then after you've thought about it a while, I want you to respond to some of the things you say and if what you think went on.
Well, so
I mean, what it does is in some scenarios, it can prevent conception of a unicellular zygote. In others, it will allow for conception to occur, then prevent implantation.
If conception happens and then the fetus is terminated, that is murder.
Okay, so you'd say that some women with IUDs are murderers?
Yeah.
Okay, do you think that all murderers should go to jail?
Well, yeah, I do.
Okay, so then you'd say that some women with some forms of birth control should go to jail?
Yeah, and see, now we're on a red herring, though. You're talking about policy. You're talking about policy, but what?
This isn't policy.
But you're avoiding the actual discussion.
No, this isn't
the actual discussion. Is what is a fetus? What is the unborn? And your only argument against that was level of development. And you said you have to be conscious that's what you value.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so how do you feel like you responded to the IUD thing as you've thought about it?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely could have responded better. And as I've done more research and more looking into it and more thinking about it, I've definitely come to a more nuanced position than what you might take away from my position in the video. Because I mean, I think there's the two levels. I mean, kind of like what Charlie Kirk said in the last video of women are deceived and stuff like that. I think with IUDs, not a lot of women actually know that even is a possibility, that conception happens and then it kills the embryo. And so, in that case, they're definitely not, murderers in that sense. But, also I still don't think you should get an IUD. I still think that's a reckless thing to do. And I think, I've talked to friends, some friends of mine who, are in law school right now, and, they'll bring up like, hey, like, there's a difference between murder and manslaughter and things like that. And I totally agree with that. And I agree that those legal distinctions are really important. But I think also too, like when you're having an ethical conversation, right, we may use the term murder more loosely than like the law does.
Because in law, there's varying degrees: first degree, second degree manslaughter. That sort of
exactly.
thing. One of the things with IUDs too, though, is I think you can disarm that argument by saying a few things. One is to say, yeah, I could argue for making IUDs illegal. Like, that's fine. There are other forms of birth control that don't do that. I don't think, and then they say, well, don't you think women are murderers? I say, well, in the same way that I don't think we can retroactively throw women that have gotten abortions when it's legal in jail, I don't think we'll be able to retroactively throw women that had IUDs in jail if they knew what they were doing. That sort of thing. And then get back to the topic. But it is so him and Parker seem to like the reductio ad absurdum, and that's basically you're trying to reduce the argument to show that your argument is actually can reduce down to absurdity.
Yeah.
By using like an adjacent example that's related to it, and so if it doesn't hold true across all that plane, then your argument is absurd. Which is a fine argument. The problem is you have to be very careful with it, because it can be a red herring, and if you don't do it well, you lose pretty quickly.
His argument, he's gonna lose, all the pro-lifers that disagree on that policy of like, what do we do with women and stuff. So immediately they're gonna think, well, that doesn't discredit the pro-life movement. So you got to be careful with making those types of arguments. Yeah.
So you did a good job of redirecting this back to the development issue, because I think you hit the nail on the head there.
So first of all,
is that correct?
Yeah. So I only value
right?
life forms that have a conjunction of past or present and future subjective experiences. But I would like to repeat, that line of questioning was not a red herring. It was using your logic to imply a certain.
No, but
so one moment.
But just
allow me 30 seconds to finish here. Right. So the same logic you're using to imply that abortion is murder and should be criminalized has also led you to the conclusion that women that use some forms of birth control should be sent to jail. Okay, I don't think that's logic we should trust,
but also,
because of how absurd the conclusions can be.
No, but here's the problem: is that people within the pro-life movement disagree on that stuff. So you can't use that to discredit the entire pro-life movement.
I'm using that to discredit your stance.
No, but what every pro.
Okay, so let's talk about this a little bit. So even if your logic went to women that have that form of birth control should be thrown into jail, is that actually absurd? Is that logically absurd?
No, it's not logically absurd. I mean, and again, like this is why, like, I always want to try to bring it back to the main conversation, because if you don't have the perspective that that you are actually, killing an innocent human being, then the policy prescriptions that pro-lifers will make zero sense to you, right? And so it's only absurd on his worldview or on his belief, which that's what we're arguing is even true or not. And so, I mean, it almost does become a little circular in that sense.
Did you use the word knowingly when you introduced your syllogism? Do you remember? I don't know if you did or not.
Yeah, and so that's something I did forget to say. And Scott Klusendorf actually pointed it out to me. I totally forgot to say the intentional killing.
Yes.
So
because
I missed
that actually would disarm the entire IUD argument. If a woman was getting an IUD just so that she would never have to go get an abortion and she knew exactly what it did, then that proves intent, and then it follows, your logic follows, and it isn't absurd. So what he's doing actually is playing to the subjective emotional states of people when they hear. You're arguing that some women who have some forms of birth control should go to jail. And that's absurd. Well, that might be absurd unless you consider that some people use abortion as a form of birth control.
Yeah, exactly.
Then it's not absurd, right? It's just playing to the emotional state of people. And so it's not actually proving an absurdity. It's not proving a logical contradiction. It's just proving that it makes people feel a certain way. There's not an actual logical issue there. That's all I wanted to point out.
Yeah, 100%.
It's the way people feel. So let's keep going, and then we'll wrap up.
Lifer agrees on, and what the heart of the issue is that you seem to be running away from is what is the unborn. And so your example of consciousness falls into level of development. But so does that mean that if we have someone, and you said, I think, subjective experiences and things like that as well. Does that mean if someone is born blind and deaf, they're less of a human being?
No,
because they can't have the same experiences as the rest of us?
So first of all, I don't think that level of experiences, like I don't know, a newborn being less conscious than you or I, that's not going to determine them to have less value. My statement would be if they have any subjective experiences, they're going to have the same amount of value, and that's going to be consistent across the board. Second of all, I'm not using this determinator for moral value, that being like first-person subjective experiences, to evaluate what is or isn't a human. A unicellular zygote from the moment of conception is a human, as determined by biologists, right? They have unique human DNA, right? My assertion here is that I do not value the fetus prior to that point because they lack this ability that is necessary for them to be harmed. They don't have a well-being. They can't be harmed. They don't have first-person subjective experiences. And to say...
So let's pause it there. Does it follow that you can't be harmed if you don't have a first-person subjective experience?
Wait, ask your question again.
Does it logically follow that you can't be, that a thing can't actually be harmed if they don't have a first-person subjective experience?
No, that's not true at all. I mean, you could say that plants are harmed, and they don't have first-person experiences.
Yeah, you could even say a fly. If you kill a fly, that they've just got instinct. I don't know that they've got subjective personal experiences.
Yeah.
So I mean, we're nitpicking a little bit here, but you have to, when you're saying that level of consciousness, like he said he only values humans that have a certain level of subjective experience.
Yeah.
And that is supremely dangerous, because who gets to choose where that line is?
Yeah.
Like, he's not actually giving an objective place, because he even says doesn't he say between 23 and 25 weeks?
Yeah. Yeah,
so
he does.
Like, okay, so like, to be safe, are we saying we limit it to 22 weeks because we're just not sure? And how sure are we that there's no subjective experience at 22 weeks?
Yeah.
Like, who's making that determination? And then you could also say there are people who would say, oh, just because some people look a certain way, their subjective experience isn't as important to me.
Yeah.
Otherwise. So you had mentioned on Facebook, I think, that you had issues with some of the things that he said here. Is this the part that you were talking about, or is it
the next part? Yeah.
Okay.
The next part is where, I think he says something super dangerous.
All right. So tell me when to stop. We'll watch it and you just tell me when to stop.
Yeah. Oh, it's not up for us.
Oh, I'm sorry. I did it. There we go. Thank you. Let's rewind. Oh, look at this guy. Dynamite mustache.
That's my buddy, Jacob.
I was going to say, did he get up?
He got up once.
Okay.
Yeah.
Man, I can remember. Oh, when I do the review, I'll
across the board. Second of all, I'm not using this determinator for moral value, that being like first-person subjective experiences, to evaluate what is or isn't a human. A unicellular zygote from the moment of conception is a human, as determined by biologists, right? They have unique human DNA, right? My assertion here is that I do not value the fetus prior to that point because they lack this ability that is necessary for them to be harmed. They don't have a well-being. They can't be harmed. They don't have first-person subjective experiences. And to say that all human life, regardless of the point of its development, including a unicellular zygote, is just as valuable. That's insane.
But you're putting a barrier on what is a human being.
No.
Yes, you are.
No, I'm
That's
already
what
told.
you have to do.
No.
And I mean, we all put the barrier somewhere. Pro-lifers say.
I will clarify again. It's a human being from the moment of conception.
finish?
Not all human
All
beings
right,
are
stop
valuable,
there.
of course.
Okay.
Yeah, that statement is insane. I mean, just the two kind of things that he said. One, he said, the idea that human beings are valuable regardless of their stage of development is an insane idea. He called that an insane idea. And then additionally, he said that no, he doesn't deny that they're human being. He's just denying essentially that they're a valuable human being. And that therefore there are among the group of human beings, there are valuable and then invaluable human beings. Which is just extremely dangerous. And I mean, if you look at the most major atrocities that have happened in world history, they all use that same exact reasoning.
Yeah, and I suppose he would say, yeah, but I'm only talking about this in cases of abortion and fetuses. I don't know. But I would say that doesn't necessarily help your argument, because you can use that logic. This is where you can get into the reductio ad absurdum. You can use that logic to say, well, you say, who are you to say that any subjective experience is important? It could be, I mean, Peter Singer has actually made the case, I believe it's Peter Singer, that kids don't actually understand that they exist and have subjective experiences until they're 2 or 3 years old.
Yeah.
They don't actually know. Or maybe it's 1 to 2 years old. They don't actually know, and so he's actually made the argument that they're less valuable, and so infanticide should be legal. And kudos to him for consistency. I mean, it's morally abhorrent, but at least it's consistent. So, and that's your concern, right? When someone says this, that opens up that avenue.
Yeah, no, it absolutely does. Yeah, and I mean, I don't think he explained at all very well how consciousness doesn't open that door. Like how it doesn't open that door to hey, people with better or more, subjective experiences are more valuable humans than ones that don't. So I don't think he ever explained that well. He just denied that it was true. He never actually, I don't think, gave an argument for that. But additionally, it's reliant. It's almost like that kind of standard is reliant on technology and scientific developments. Whereas I don't think we want any moral system that's when it comes to human value and worth, that's reliant on what, science, the latest scientific development, right? Because it could come out, that actually, they're conscious at, 10 weeks. Okay. So then our, pro-choice advocates, are they going to now move that to 10 weeks? Well, I doubt that, but
yeah. So this is the interesting thing too, because I don't think this ever gets brought up, and we'll watch a little bit more here, but people who have mental disabilities, born with mental disabilities, Down syndrome, or we've got a guy that comes to our church. His son was born with a severe mental disability, and they don't know if he has any real subjective personal experiences. He's grown. He has to be fed through a tube. So I think he's 19 now. So who's to say that is that person less valuable because of their mental capacity? Down syndrome babies have less mental capacity. They just do. And Iceland here is, touting that they've eliminated Down syndrome, which they basically just created a genocide of Down syndrome kids in Iceland. But that's the terrifying thing, right? That this might sound good in a debate where it's oh yeah, but it's really just soothing of the conscience in my opinion, because I don't know that you can actually say that this is actually an objective reality that we know for sure.
100%.
Yeah, and I've even handed it to some people who said, hey, you know what? There could be an argument to say that implantation is when life begins rather than conception. I don't buy it, but that could be, because people have brought up God's the biggest killer because of all the miscarriages.
Yeah.
Be Well, maybe, but I don't get to make that distinction. He does. All right. So let's continue here, and then we'll close with some closing thoughts.
What I was saying is we all put the barrier somewhere. And so pro-lifers are going to put the barrier on conception because that is when it is an independent human being. But you're putting the barrier on consciousness. And I'm saying,
It's true.
so if you're going to put the barrier there, the problem is that the result of that view is that people with less consciousness have less value.
It is not.
Yes, it is.
Right.
Why is that not the case?
Yeah, because my conjunction for value is meeting the conditions of having the ability to deploy consciousness, right? But if you deploy more consciousness than another human, that doesn't mean you have more value than them. Any level of consciousness, right, is going to yield the same amount of value as the next. I think that as soon as a fetus gains this ability to deploy these first-person subjective experiences, that they have just as much value as
deploy consciousness. So what about if you have someone that is unconscious, that cannot deploy consciousness?
Well, once
Can
again,
we just kill them?
No, because they would still meet the conditions of my conjunction for distributing more value.
What's the conditions?
That being past or present consciousness and future consciousness, right? So if you meet
and
that conjunction,
future consciousness.
Yeah.
Okay, so if they have the potential for consciousness.
I do not think that the potential for consciousness in the future on its own would yield a morally valuable.
Okay, so now you're walking back on.
I am not walking back.
Yeah, you did, because you said.
Okay, do you think he was walking back there?
No, I understand that. I understand his word salad now that I've been able to like actually process it. But in the moment of the debate, you know, when you're hearing that, you're trying to process so much. It very much did seem like he was trying to walk that back. But yeah, I mean, like he gives this like, you know, very, I don't know, arbitrary definition, almost a little ad hoc, in one sense of like, well, okay, the only group of people you're excluding is the unborn. So, you know, you better have a really good reason for defining it that way.
The question I would ask is, why does experience, like any subjective experience, why does that convey worth?
Yeah.
Like I don't follow. Explain to me why that's the case. You've said it's a human life. Why, whether that human life experiences something or not in the present moment, does that convey worth?
Yeah.
And I think the answer is, well, because consciousness conveys worth. Like, well, why does it? Well, just because, you know, if people can't feel things, then they don't have worth.
Yeah.
And so to me, it just devolves into kind of circular reasoning.
Yeah.
Because I don't think you can have an objective reason as to why you can say, I don't value human life until it reaches consciousness. Whatever we know it, whatever we think consciousness is. And here's the other thing about consciousness is we don't know what it is.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, scientists have said it's one of the biggest mysteries. We don't actually know what it is. And so now we're sitting here going, well, we're basing human value in life on something that to this day, scientists go, we kind of understand, you know, people have consciousness, but we don't actually know where it comes from or what it is.
Yeah.
So it's not, I think there was a study, boy, if Tim was here, he'd be able to cite it.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was out of UCLA or one of those coast schools, where basically you are not your brain, saying that consciousness, we don't think consciousness comes necessarily from brain waves, brain activity. I might be butchering that, but yeah. All right, let's, I think we're almost done here.
I have a question. Is the potentiality for consciousness...
Can you let me finish? Because you've been complaining about everyone interrupting, and that's fair. But I need to make my point. All right. So you were saying that you were just saying about future consciousness, and that's exactly the argument with the pro-life, is that they have the potential for that consciousness. And again, you're discriminating based on level of development. And if we were to discriminate against a toddler or whatnot based off of level of development, if that's what it means to be human, then that introduces a subjective aspect.
You're just kind of making talking points now, right? I've already clarified that this isn't what makes someone a human. This is what makes a human morally valuable.
Yeah, but
I've also clarified, one moment, allow me to finish.
Sure,
allow me to finish. I've also clarified here that no, I do not value potential for future consciousness on its own. I value it in conjunct to past or present. I feel as if you are almost ignoring my argument, conceiving of an argument.
Okay, well, we have it on video of you not just saying past and present, but.
All right. I think you might be wrong there.
Yeah. No, I again, like the whole conjunction thing was very, very confusing. Especially when he's talking so fast, too, and just everything that went into it. It was really hard to explain. And so I actually went live with Dean the day the video came out. He went live and I requested to join. And basically what I told him there, I was like, yeah, I understand that I misunderstood your argument. Had you used something like language like necessary or like sufficient conditions, I would have immediately understood what you were trying to say. Because he was essentially saying that the two necessary conditions was having the future potential of having experiences, and then having a present or a past experience. And those are the two necessary conditions. So how to use that language, I would have understood that a little bit more. But also, like, I mean, the point is like, why would you add the past or present experience? It doesn't. Well, you seem to just be adding it because you want to argue for abortion.
Yeah, I think the reason he adds the past is because if somebody has past experience, but then they're rendered unconscious because they get hit by a truck, but they have potential for future, he would say, well, they don't have present consciousness, but they've had past consciousness and they could have future consciousness, so we should keep them alive and help them. I see his argument. I don't actually, and in fact, it's a very nuanced position. It's interesting to me because I would say he might be 1-2% of pro-choicers that are smart enough to actually make that argument. I still don't think it works, but it's the closest thing I've heard to something that is feasible and could work. Regardless. So let's end it here. How did you feel like your experience went? Would you do it again?
Well, I definitely would do it again. And I may be doing it again somewhat soon. So I guess you're going to have to stay tuned for that.
You're going to have to get me. You know what? I looked at that once and I was like, oh, I'd love to go on one of these. I'm like, I can't go out to LA. Because I don't think they pay for like anybody to come out there.
I think they paid for Dean to come out.
Probably. Like
he wasn't in LA.
They probably paid for Charlie Kirk too. But not me. Man, I'm small potatoes.
So I mean, it would be fun to have you on one of the videos. But I mean, I think overall, I did pretty decent.
I think so.
And so I obviously wasn't perfect in everything that I said, but overall, I still don't think Dean's point stands. And I do think just most of the time, well, maybe, I guess most of the time, he never really actually was getting to my argument until the very end there. And so, that's unfortunate. And that's
kind of the difficulty of a 10-minute debate with no prep.
Yeah.
Right? Like, you came ready. That was it. Like in the Charlie Kirk video, the girl said affirmative action is constitutional, and she did not come ready at all. She was just
no, she didn't come ready at all.
It is because it is. But you came with a syllogism, with an argument, and so you guys were actually able to have a substantive debate. It gets a little heated, but it was respectful. Like, I was impressed with his demeanor, with your demeanor. I would actually love to see you guys interact again, because I think you said this at the end of the video. These are important things. I think this is an important thing, especially with how angry people are all the time, right? And I think it's awesome that you're partaking in that, because I do think Jubilee's doing something that is super important for our society.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, well, and that's where I have to totally disagree with Omar what he said at the end of the video, which is like it was just two walls talking, and so it wasn't very valuable. I mean, I totally disagree with that.
That might have been his.
That might have been him. That might have been his. Yeah, with his conversation, and it probably was his fault. But at least I thought most of the time, though, it was good dialogue, and that stuff is important. And as I said, it's on YouTube. It has millions of views, and just being able to see two people respectfully disagree is super important. And I've actually been shocked at how many messages I've gotten from Democrats. I've gotten tons of comments and messages from Democrats saying like, hey, I completely disagree with you, but you were one of the most respectful, intelligent debaters on there, and you actually made like a logical argument that got me to think. And Good. So, I'm very, very encouraged by those messages and those people reaching out to me.
Yeah. I think the juxtaposition between the two videos. Now, one of the things is Charlie Kirk just elicits emotional reactions. There is Charlie Kirk derangement syndrome out there. Yeah. I get that. But the juxtaposition between the two videos, with the conservatives making sure to take care of each other, making sure everyone got time, kind of collectively making sure it was a good experience, as opposed to if you look at the comments on the Jubilee video, there's a bunch of people that are like, oh look, they're not racing and like shoving each other out of the chair.
Yeah.
Oh look, they're not shouting over each other. I mean, the one lady did for a little while, and I was like, yeah, just go sit down. And we all have those people. But I do think the difference between those two really shows a lot, in the difference in the country. I don't know if you're aware of this, but CNN just released, like, they interviewed like elementary school kids and about if their parents would be okay with them going to like a Biden supporter's house or a Trump supporter's house. And invariably the Trump supporting parents were fine with their kids going to a Biden supporter's house. The opposite was not true.
Yeah.
And I think that bears it out. And these two videos show that. We could all ratchet down the discourse a little bit. But,
well, and I think the divides are deep, and that it's playing itself out in different ways. But it was funny. I was talking with Charlie Kirk after the video, and we were there's a group of us that had stayed, and so we ended up being able to talk with him. But as we were talking, the liberals started walking in, and Charlie like pauses the conversation, and he's like, hey guys, look. And he was like, just look at how different of a crowd that is compared to you guys, and like how different, like dressed, just purely like how we're dressed, like how different it is. And he was like, I'm not saying it's wrong, but definitely politics have become aesthetics as well. And I just think that shows like the deep divide, and and definitely in how we treat each other too. You can see the difference between that.
Absolutely. So. All right. Well, thanks for coming on. This is fun.
Thanks for having me.
For those that are in my audience, I know you're streaming on some of your platforms as well. Where can they find more of your stuff? If people who look for FreeThinking Ministries and can't find us on TikTok, they can just follow you. So I'm on TikTok.
TikTok gave me the ability to go live recently, so I've been doing that and been doing some discussions with people on there. So if you want to follow me on TikTok, it's just at Micah Kunkle, MICAHKUNKLE. And then that's pretty much my handle for everything else, for YouTube, for Instagram, for Twitter, for all that. So I'm on all of the socials.
All right. Yeah. Go and follow Micah. He's a friend of FreeThinking Ministries, and it's been fun to have this conversation, and looking forward to seeing you in more Jubilee videos. That'll be
fun. We'll have to have a conversation about it afterwards. So,
all right. Well, thanks for joining us. God bless. And as we say all the time here at FreeThinking Ministries,